Well, France isn't the only country that elected a new leader this week. U.S. ally South Korea also chose a new president. Moon Jae-in represents a major departure from the country's typically conservative leadership. For one thing, he's called for greater dialogue with North Korea amid growing tensions over nuclear threats, a policy which could have major ramifications for the U.S. Isaac Stonefish joins me now on set. He's a senior fellow at the Asia Society Center on U.S. and China Relations and Foreign Policy magazine contributor. So, Isaac, for most folks who don't know this new president, how is he different?
He's much more liberal than his predecessor, Park, who is now sitting in jail after being impeached. And he's a clear sign that South Koreans really want something different. They want someone who's going to be better domestically, economically. They want someone who's going to be clean. And by choosing Moon, they want someone who's going to be more engaging with North Korea.
What do you think this is going to mean for U.S. relations?
I think it's probably not going to be a good sign, a good step for relations between South Korea and the United States. The issue is that Moon has already come out and said that he's willing to talk with North Korea in a much more forthright manner than Trump did. And Moon has also showed a lot of concern towards the anti-missile defense system that the United States rammed into South Korea when they had a transition between Park, who's impeached, and this presidential election that we just saw. So we could see more tension between the two sides.
So if Moon is more open to negotiations with Kim Jong-il, the North Korean leader, what do you think this means if the Trump administration wants to push sanctions and take a tougher line? Is this going to be a big head-to-head between the two countries here?
I think it's just going to show that sanctions are not going to work nearly as well as the Trump administration wants them to work. We don't only have the problem of Moon having a more conciliatory policy towards North Korea, but we have China, which is North Korea's major trading partner. And although Trump likes to claim a victory saying, oh yeah, I really made the Chinese act tougher against North Korea, actually, and this is a really striking statistic, trade between China and North Korea in the first quarter of 2017 actually went up 37.4%. 37.4% over the same period last year. So that's a big change. That's a big increase.
And what's the sense for the people of South Korea? What's the sense towards Donald Trump? Because sometimes the way they view foreign policy is different based on your domestic constraints. So do they like President Trump? What's the sense?
I think there's a lot of concern that Trump doesn't respect the alliance between the United States and South Korea. There's a lot of concern that Trump really seems to want the South Koreans to pay more for their defense. And I think there's resentment. I think people in the United States tend to forget that South Korea is really in the firing line of North Korea, and especially Seoul and the surrounding regions. There's a lot of potential that if North Korea does attack, these are the people who are going to get hit first. And I think a lot of people feel that Trump doesn't appreciate that.
Do you think there's any sort of hope or even sense in having South Korea talk directly to North Korea? If there were some sort of talks, we often hear folks on the other side of the world say, why is the U.S. getting involved when it's more of an issue that directly impacts, as you were saying? Do you think that that could be more successful than U.S. intervention in this?
I think North Korea really wants the United States to be involved, because if we go by what North Korea says, which is always tricky with North Korea, they feel that the United States is their major external security threat, and they say their nuclear weapons are to prevent anything like Gaddafi happening to them or Saddam Hussein happening to their leader. So I think they want some sort of guarantee from the United States, and South Korea can be a part of that, but on face value, the U.S. part is more important.
So what do you think, as we're looking into this, it's sort of a critical time. We know the president has spoken greatly about North Korea. Where do you see this all headed now that we have a new president in South Korea?
I think the real issue there is what China does and how willing China is to push on North Korea. Because I think South Korea could decide to have a more formal dialogue with North Korea. There could even be another summit between the two leaders. But the real wild card is whether or not China thinks that it really wants to be the one to push North Korea to denuclearize, or if they stay more conservative, they stay more on the sidelines, they keep trading with North Korea, and they make sure that it's a U.S. problem, not a China problem.
Isaac Stonefish, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.